G'day everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Australian Property Investment Podcast. I'm your host, Aaron Christie David, and you may know me that I run a mortgage broking business called Atelier Wealth, where we specialize in helping property investors start out and scale up their property portfolio and on their ambitious journey to build intergenerational wealth through property. We bring along some excellent guests, so people that I call best in breed. So we're talking buyers agents, we're talking accountants, financial planners. Today's guest is a little left of center, but will have a lot to say. And I feel like he's going to have a message that will resonate with a lot of Illawarra locals as well. So Ben Wollen from Wollen Architects. G'day, mate. How you doing?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic, mate. Before we kick off, I want to just reiterate that this is a general chat and not intended to give advice. So if you do need advice, please seek out a professional. So Ben is a well-known name in Illawarra architecture. You've been around for well over 15 years on the south coast there, mate. You've been award-winning. So we've got a Lindner Prize for New South Wales Architecture Awards. And I guess you've got a really good reputation, mate. So what we want to do is learn a little bit about yourself personally, professionally, your journey down to be based on the south coast as well. And then we'll talk about something exciting that's coming up in the Illawarra just after that, mate. So welcome on. Love to hear more about you.
Good to be here. Yeah, so I started my journey actually in Newcastle, the other steel city.
Yeah.
I grew up there, and first of all, I started life as my career as an environmental scientist.
Yeah.
Because I just always loved nature. I love being out in the bush. Love going for long multi-day hikes, and thought, oh well, it's worth saving nature. And I could see, living in Newcastle, the coal being extracted. I thought, oh, that's probably my thing to get into. But what happened was I got a job in the coal mines after I graduated. And that was kind of a little bit debilitating, and I felt ineffectual. So I decided, I've got to go and see the world. Did the Aussie thing, went over to London, travelled around, went to North America, Mexico, and Asia. Beautiful. And kind of got back and was inspired by all the architecture and thought, yeah, maybe actually I can have a bigger impact in architecture, because as we know, our buildings actually contribute 40% or thereabouts of our overall carbon footprint of the planet. And so I thought maybe sustainable design is a much more proactive kind of place for me to be in. So I studied architecture. I went through 5 years is the degree, and then came out, and I like to now think of myself as an environmental architect.
Beautiful.
Sustainability is obviously a key word these days, but it's also, unfortunately, gets a lot of greenwashing. Mm-hmm. And the way I see environmental architecture, the way I kind of think about that is that it's kind of dissolving that boundary between man and nature, so that our kind of living built environments can sit more harmoniously with the environment. So that's the short bit of how I became an architect.
Nice.
How I ended up on the south coast. Well, Sydney prices, I can tell you, had a big factor at play. We were living in Bronte, paying exorbitant amounts of rent, and could just see the prices going up. And we loved the beach. I came from Newcastle, another beach, so beach town, and I couldn't bear the thought of not living near the beach. And so we looked northern beaches, we looked going back to Newcastle, Central Coast. My sister was living down in Austinmere at the time, and we were often visiting her. And we thought, oh, actually, it's only an hour away from the airport or thereabouts.
Yeah.
It's only an hour and a bit into Sydney. It's got all the mods and cons in Wollongong, and it's got beautiful beaches, stunning scenery, National Park North, National Parks West, National Park South. It's actually ticks all the boxes. And so we moved to Austinmere first. We were renting out there in this beautiful modernist sort of Pettit and Sevitt design. I don't know if you know Pettit and Sevitt, but they're beautiful house fell in love with the place. Tried to buy that house from our landlords, and they said, no, we're moving down. And so I thought, oh God, we've got to just get a foothold then. So we were looking around and ended up getting a little fibro shack in Coaldale and looked back. Yeah.
Nice one. Yeah, great. And I guess from when you've been in Coaldale to where it is now, it's probably, you've seen the evolution and call it even a bit of a gentrification going through that suburb as well, isn't it?
Oh, massive. I mean, when we first kind of moved down, it was pre-pandemic. I think it was 2000, mid 2015 or thereabouts. And, you know, you could still get a place for under $1 million.
Yeah.
It was affordable.
Yeah.
And then COVID hit, and, you know, at a regional boom, it just sort of went gangbusters.
Yeah.
And people were starting to see the benefits of this area as well. I think predominantly in the past, it was always seen, the Northern Illawarra was seen as a holiday home place, a bit of a quiet little beach suburbs, a lot of people from the Shire having their holiday homes down here.
Yeah.
And that's changed. Like all of our friends are from, a lot of our friends are from Redfern.
Yeah. Oh, there's inner west migration. Yeah.
That's right. And they call this area, actually, I think someone's coined it the inner west on the beach or something like that. I've heard that anyway. At one point there, I was talking to some real estate agents, and they said most of the buyers that they were experiencing were from Balmain.
Yeah.
That was 2019.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess we've seen plenty of Sydney siders that have moved down the coast going, hang on, I'm only really an hour away, but get an awesome lifestyle and get an awesome property for a bang for your buck. It's come out of its sleepy state, I'd say. It's like that little hidden gem has been discovered, which I think it's great for the area, and it's bringing some really wonderful talent down as well. It's just, I guess there's that squeeze on locals, and what you've been used to from a price perspective and what it's shifted to now blows their mind, doesn't it?
Totally. And I feel for a lot of the locals who perhaps hadn't got a foothold into the market at that point in time, you know, and we're looking and watching prices go so far north.
Correct.
And it's a tricky thing, because what makes this place special is the real diversity of people. Yeah. And the strength of the community as well is something that I've really not encountered before. You know, incentives like the Electrify 2515 program. Yeah. There was the Save Thurrool. You know, people just, I think, you know, just really kind of looking out for one another, and also appreciate that sense of community.
Very much. Very much.
Yeah, which in the big cities sometimes hard to find. It's not easily achievable with so many people kind of moving place to place and so much more density.
Correct. It's a little bit more transient, isn't it, compared to, I guess, people put down roots and they want to be there. And you talk about families who've been there for generations almost. You don't get that potentially in some areas of Sydney where it is a little bit more transient, or people are there for a short time, not a long time as well.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Perfect. Mate, take me through, because I know I've looked at your business. I've obviously seen your name in and around the area as well. So take me through, because you talk about like your bushfire prone type, your architecture centers around that. So take me through a little bit about your business and I guess the sweet spot that you've really got for your architecture business as well, mate.
Yeah, sure. So as I said about sustainability, it's evolved a lot as we kind of coming into this new era of, okay, climate change is definitely here. It's affecting the planet. We can see that in the size of our bushfire season getting expanded, but also the events getting bigger. The floods, looks like we're probably about to go into a bunch of droughts.
Yeah.
And look, sustainability still goes a long way, but the main thing with sustainability was to reduce our impact on the planet. Now what we're looking at is really making ourselves resilient. And so that's kind of where the evolution of sustainability has gone, from this idea of okay, we've got to save the planet, to now, okay, we've got to save ourselves as well, because, you know, I live in a bushfire area, like there's no doubt about it. If a bushfire came in this area, we'd be under threat. And so the idea of resilient design, I think, is that kind of evolution, that natural evolution. So for bushfire, that was, for me, marrying my scientific background, environmental science background, into architecture. Like how do those two things, that art and that science, come together? And so in 2014, I put in a research grant, which was under the David Linder program, and it was about how can we convert our communities into much more resilient communities for bushfire. And that was a little exercise in the Blue Mountains. So the problem with the Blue Mountains is it's all up on ridges. It's all in the bush.
Yeah.
It's got massive amounts of national park on the north, massive amounts of national park on the south. A lot of the communities have one way in, one way out.
Yes.
And it's, you know, it has in the past, in the 1940s, 50s, had some really bad bushfires come into the main townships, but it hasn't in a long time. And so it was like, well, what can we do? How do we kind of make these communities more resilient? And really what we found in the bushfires of the 2019-2020 season, so important that community, number one, community could come together, and that they had a local base, a safe place. So when they get that big, there's, you know, not enough resources to actually tackle the blaze. I'm a volunteer in the RFS, and you know, you can call up in those big events, and even though we've got trucks everywhere, it's not to say that you will get a truck there immediately saving your home. Thus the importance of having a resilient home, having all those bushfire resilient measures on your house, but also having a place in your nearby your community that you know where you can go, you know, a safe hold. And that is often these days the bushfire brigades, the local bushfire brigade shed.
Yeah, okay.
There's usually a sporting oval as well, and they'll surround the oval with their appliances, make sure that that's safe. And so in my dissertation, I came up with a childcare centre that could double as a bushfire safe place.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah. And it was just really exploring the idea of, you know, digging into the ground a bit, being underneath, minimal exposure with glass to the trees or where the closest forest was, and multiple exits, all these kind of things, sprinkler systems, all of that. And so that's kind of an example of the kind of approach I take to taking on each site and seeing what are the opportunities and constraints, and how do we make this house survive, you know, into this climate change future. Predominantly residential I exercise in. Yeah. I do the odd work on some community centres and some group homes. And, you know, most of my clients come to me with a real kind of idea behind reducing their impact on the planet, whether that's through, you know, passive design systems integrated into the design, including landscape, whether that's active systems like solar panels, water tanks, pumps, all of that, heating and cooling, all of those measures sort of combining into this nice, neat, resilient house, so they can feel confident about going into the future. Yeah.
Fantastic, mate. I love that. It's certainly you're probably almost ahead of your time a few years ago, right? And the bushfires kind of put that smack bang front and center for a lot of people. And then you think about now where I guess we were at a conference recently and they're talking about, what's the future for housing and what does the market look like? And a lot of the focus is on sustainable developments For example, we've seen a few. I've been part of a development that was out at Melrose Park, that, you know, the 6-star rating, and the way they designed and laid out that entire development just kind of speaks volumes about how we're going to see future developments unfold as well for communities. But then also banks are coming to the party going, you know, we're doing solar loans, we're doing green home loans, for example. And so now banks are rewarding and recognizing people and making that energy efficiency in their home or investment into solar. They're being rewarded as well. You know, flow through to electric vehicles now getting a better rate because, you know, banks are now kind of gearing themselves towards this. So I feel like the movement is certainly on. That groundswell movement's happened, and now commercially it's starting to kind of be met halfway as well.
Yeah, you're seeing that work its way into, actually. All my clients now are asking for the charging points in their garage.
Yeah.
It's the weirdest thing. We've got an electric car. Yeah. It's the weirdest thing to come home and plug your car in. You know, it took a while for me to kind of come to terms with that.
It's a whole new concept.
Yeah. I mean, sure, the power bill goes up, but I mean, you see the gas prices these days, you see these conflicts happening, and that again, not just climate change, but you're seeing world events affect things like the price of energy, the price of fuel. The recent crisis in the Gaza, likely going to push petrol prices up.
Spot on.
So if you've got that ability to charge your car and you've got solar panels up top, boom, you know, you're in a much better position to take on these kind of crises.
Yeah, well said.
See them through. Yeah.
Perfect. And I guess, I mentioned about the Illawarra, and something that's I'm really excited, and I know that you'll be pumped about this. It's happening on the 25th of November, is the Illawarra Festival of Architecture and Design. So what I'd like to do is talk a little bit more about what the event is going to entail. I know there's quite a lot of activations happening during the day as well. So do you want to kind of take us through how did this idea come to life, and then what can people expect on the day as well, Ben?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so pre-COVID, I decided to have an architecture festival, but it was a satellite festival to the Sydney Architecture Festival. And it was really just a collective of local architects giving a talk, and that subject was under the Sydney Architecture Festival banner, which was more affordable. That was just the tagline. Okay. So it was all ideas about affordability and how architecture can tackle those. Fast forward post-pandemic, and what we were going to do it with the Sydney Architecture Festival, but they've been prevaricating about bringing it back. And so my co-director and I said, well, let's just give it a go.
Love it.
And so we came up with the idea, because it had been a few years, the idea of out of practice. So out of practice, because we're out of practice sort of holding events.
Yeah.
We're out of practice coming out of architectural practice, and we're out of practice having these community events, these festivals. And so the idea is bring that back, that conversation, because I think that's really important to not only promote architecture, but to promote good quality built environment in our case in the Illawarra. That's our real focus. We're trying to keep it about the Illawarra. And so Penny, my co-director, and I decided, let's give it another go. Let's make it a bit bigger and better, and let's make it an annual thing. And so we've come up with, it's a whole day of great architecturally kind of led activities. So 7 a.m, I'm taking a bike tour. So I've been slowly mapping all these really beautiful architecture homes along the northern Illawarra, and they can go back to 1960s, but some are built last year. And so I'm going to lead a tour with the bike mayor of Wollongong, Edward Burt, and we're going to take 20 people and see these fantastic homes, not to mention riding along that spectacular coastline, go to the Sea Bridge, past all the beaches, and we go up on the escarpment in places. And these little houses, which no one would have known. We've got a Wilkinson award-winning house up here in Wollongong that we're going to go and visit. we're only going to see them from the outside on the bike tour. But Wilkinson Award-winning, that is the pinnacle of New South Wales Architectural Awards. It won back in the 1990s. We'll go past that one. We'll go past a whole bunch of other beautiful homes. And then we end up in Austinmere at 10 a.m, so that's 3 hours. And then if you want to continue that tour, you just love architecture so much, you go and do the open house tour where you get to go inside.
Nice.
And you can meet the architect and they'll talk a bit about the design processes and stuff. And you get to kind of walk through, and that's thanks to the owners. Their generosity is letting a whole bunch of strangers come through their house. That's from 10 till 12. And then at that point in time, we're all going to head over down to the open studio space, which is down in behind Bunnings in Bellambi. And it's going to be an afternoon of panel discussions. There's 3 streams. One is interiors. The second one is the evolution of local architecture. And the third one, the finale, will be on community and how that interacts with architecture. On the other side of where the panel discussions are, there's going to be kids activities so that mums and dads can leave kids there.
Yeah.
And they're going to have giant Jenga competitions. They're going to have tower building competitions. And we're going to have the junkyard rascals who get all this sort of save stuff from the waste stream, and they create big sculptures with the children so that mums and dads can feel safe that the kids are learning something and having good fun while they get to listen to the panel discussions. So on the first panel, we've got the interiors. We've got Deborah Hutton. We've got Roseanne Journet. She's moderating it. She's a local interior designer. We've got Margie Rahman from Edmonton Jones. She's done some amazing work locally. And they're going to just talk about the evolution of the interiors and how that has kind of resulted in the beautiful homes that we see in the northern Illawarra and all throughout Wollongong. Evolution, things like, kitchen. The open plan kitchen came about back in the 1940s or something like that open plan, yeah. And so how is that translated to nowadays? Are people still into that open plan? And how come the kitchen has become this jewel of the inside of a house?
The epicenter of a house. Yeah, great.
Epicenter of a house. And it's where a lot of people spend so much money. You can spend like $30,000 on a fridge these days. And people, love that. It's just, it's kind of like, the jewel in the house. And so there'll be a whole bunch of discussions around that. Then the architecture stream, Penny's my co-director, is hosting that or moderating that, and they're going to be talking about how the kind of local architecture influenced, like pre-contemporary times, some of the houses in the area. Like, is it through materials? Is it through design approach? How is that kind of moving into this kind of climate change environment? So we've got Morgan Figgis talk about his work. We've got Dane Taylor, who's done some great work in and around Austinmere and has had a heap of publicity around his butterfly house. And we're going to talk to Adam Suter. He's a builder.
Yeah.
He's just done the passive design house, Pepper Tree. It's won a whole bunch of awards. That's down in West Wollongong there. And how that kind of, all these new systems are kind of coming into play on the housing design. So BASIC's now, we have to achieve 7 stars minimum.
Yeah.
So how is that going to translate into the design of homes? Then finally, community. That's kind of going big picture, and we're just, so if we, for example, we've got Deb Hunt's on that one again, and we've got Saul Griffith, Dr. Electrify, and Edward Burt, Bike Mayor of Wollongong. What does that mean for the built environment of our area of the Illawarra? What does it mean for bike paths? What does it mean for the local beach pavilion or the community centre? What does it mean for potential new developments, wind farms off the coast, all of that? And it's going to kind of just cap the whole event off. Then we're going to go and have some beer and wine at the Barrel Shepherd and some pizzas from the Wood-Fired Pizza guys.
How good's that? Sounds like an amazing day, and I'm really glad our business is getting behind this as well, because I think it's a great event. I think it's a real mix of people that either aspiring to build a fantastic and architecturally designed home, and then homeowners in the area who have been there, done that, sharing their wisdom, and obviously the professionals that have come along that journey as well. So it's going to be an amazing event. If you're down in the Illawarra, I highly recommend you put this in the diary for the 25th of November. We'll include all the details to the event in the show notes below as well. And if you want to find out about more from Ben and his architecture business, we'll include the details for Wollen Architects below as well. But Ben, I want to say thank you very much for your time, for your generosity, and look forward to an amazing event on the 25th of November, mate. Smash it.
No, thank you. And thank you for coming on board as gold sponsors. Thank you so much to Telio Wealth, and thanks for having me on the show.
Not at all, mate. Wonderful. That's a wrap for another episode of the Australian Property Investment Podcast. Like I said, had a slightly different flavor, but we'll do a recap on what happens on the 25th, and we'll bring that event to you. Some of the highlight reels, we'll share that on our socials as well. And if you found this episode helpful, we'd love a review. And better yet, if you have any questions for future episodes, please drop us an email or shoot us a message as well. Thanks very much.